What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Phillies Sports History for April 12th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a feel-good Friday edition of the podcast. Feeling much better after the colonoscopy. Public service announcement, be sure to go out and get checked if you're over a certain age or you have a family history. A couple days worth of being uncomfortable is well worth it to catch something, God forbid, if you have it. So that is the public service announcement portion of the show. As always, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, did the Eagles get screwed by the NFL by having to play Green Bay to open up the season in Brazil? 63% of you said yes. And again, that was not me whining. I just feel like playing a pivotal NFC game on the road in Brazil and counting it as a home game, it just, I don't know. And I get what the NFL is doing. I hope it doesn't, but that could be something that comes back to bite the Eagles at some point. But you got to play who's on your schedule, where they tell you to play. So unlike the 49ers fans, we're just going to move with it. We're going to go with it. Last, I'm going to talk about it. Unless they got to have some ridiculous schedule coming out of that, they should get hooked up somewhat. But we will see. As always, thanks for participating in the question of the day. 267-495-8531. Get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. There will be another question of the day later in the show. Be sure to check me out on social media, Jimbo_Mott, Twitter, and TikTok. At Philly Jimbo on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's grow this thing. Tell your friends. It's a quick, easy listen every day. You can do it while you're commuting, while you're on your lunch, walking, whatever. Tell your friends. Let's spread the word, and let's grow this thing. Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame 2024 induction class has been announced. All the information you need, including ticket information, is in the description. There is an opportunity if any of you have businesses that you'd like to promote and be a sponsor, whether it's an ad in the program or having your name displayed anywhere. Let me know if you're interested. We were talking about that earlier this week in our meeting. So if you're interested, you want to donate to a raffle or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be sports related. We're looking for some experiences, so I'm going to reach out to some friends who have some restaurants and see what they can do. But if you're in the hospitality and restaurant industry and you have some ideas, or you work for a place I don't know why I'm thinking a ropes course or something like that, or any type of business that you either want to be a sponsor or have something that you'd like to be part of the auction, hit me up. You can DM me or hit me up on the voice and text line, whatever is easiest for you. But this is proving to be a really, really large, largely attended ceremony due to just the star power in the induction class. So it goes for, if you want to buy tickets, buy them early. But again, if you want to get your name out there, your business, want to be a sponsor, have something that you can donate for raffle, hit me up on it. It's going to be probably, they were saying, one of the most, if not the most attended one in their history. So now would be the time to get in. So hit me up offline for that. All right. Before we get into today's show, I would be remiss if I did not mention the passing of O.J. Simpson, Heisman Trophy winning running back, first NFL back to go over 2,000 yards. All of that other good stuff and accolades. We all know what happened 30 years ago. Hard to believe that was 30 years ago. But really, that whole trial was kind of the introduction to reality TV. Around that time, it was only The Real World for the most part. And I don't know how large of an audience it was. I mean, obviously, based on my age, I was really into the Real World. I really enjoyed that. But it was, and I'm not making light of it because two people did lose their lives, but it truly was a reality show with all the characters from Johnny Cochran. You had Mark Furman, Marcia Clark, Christopher Darden. Like, there was the Shapiro, Robert Shapiro, Rob Kardashian, like so many different characters. And it just was I mean, a circus. I mean, it's a shame that this was a murder trial for two people who lost their lives, but it truly was a circus. But like I said, I'd be remiss if I did not mention. I'm not going to get into. Everybody has strong feelings. I know I was super enthralled in this whole thing 30 years ago, back to the whole Bronco chase and all of that, which is coming up on that anniversary in a couple months. All of that to say, there is a Philly sports tie to all of this, and we mentioned the snowballs up in the Polo Grounds yesterday, and ultimately the Philadelphia fans threw snowballs at Santa due in part to the team winning just enough to not get the first round pick in the 1969 NFL draft, which would have given them O.J. Simpson. Instead, they settled for Leroy Keys, and we know how that played out. But it's fair to say that the fortunes of the Eagles likely would have changed over the course of the 70s if they had O.J. Simpson. Would he have put them over the top and been a Super Bowl contender? That I don't know. But I think it's fair. I mean, you had Minnesota and Dallas really were the two dominant teams throughout, and Washington was there too. But really, who knows? It's just, I mean, Dallas and Washington were in the Eagles division, but maybe they would have been able to go on a run. So who knows? But O.J. Simpson passed away. There is a Philly sports tie there. And truly, I mean, I think that trial really led to the birth of reality TV as we know it. I mean, it certainly gave us the Kardashians. If it wasn't for that trial, likely we don't meet Kim Kardashian and that whole family, which, depending on which side of the tracks you're on, that might be a good thing. But O.J. Simpson, like I said, passed away, and there is that Philadelphia tie that ultimately O.J., not first person responsible, but is responsible for basically us getting the reputation of booing and throwing snowballs at Santa. So there is that. All right. It's not over yet. Great win for the Flyers, 4-1, snapping that losing streak. It's going to be a fun weekend between them and the Sixers, but Sam Ersson was outstanding yesterday. Flyers win 4-1. They're now 1 point behind Pittsburgh for that wild card spot, tied with Detroit and Washington. They have a game coming up against Washington at home. They play the Devils tomorrow. It's going to be a fun weekend of sports, just scoreboard watching. You got the Masters as well. But good win for the Flyers. There was a report before the game. John Tortorella is not going anywhere next year. And I do think that's the right decision. I think at this point, you get the team, at least give him the start of the team, and hopefully they can sustain whatever they get started with. But good win. They're not dead yet. Hopefully, as someone on my Twitter pointed out, I'm not the reverse black cat, and now I'm jinxing them and having them being done. But they're not done yet. It's going to come right down to the wire. Crazier things have happened in tiebreaker scenarios like this in Philly sports. We talked about the '08 Eagles earlier in the week when they needed the most ridiculous things to happen in order to even have a chance to play for a playoff spot. So the Flyers are just 1 point behind with 2 games left. I'm sure they're tied with 2 other teams, but they play one of those teams. So we shall see. We'll be glued to the TV this weekend. Sixers, huge. And I mean, I say all the time, big games, huge games, but this is the game of the season right now for the Sixers. They take on the Magic tonight down at the Wells Fargo Center. They're currently 1 game back of Indiana, who takes on Cleveland tonight. And then the Heat are at home. I think they play home and home, or back-to-back home games against the Raptors, which that's going to put the pressure on the Sixers as well because they're 1 game up on the Heat. So you don't want to necessarily lose because Toronto is a terrible, terrible team. But it starts tonight. You got to take care of your own business against the Magic and then figure out and let everything else fall where it may. I don't think, based on the way I was looking at the standings, I don't think the Sixers can get any higher than the 6th seed because the Magic and Indiana are both tied for the division lead in the South, or not the Southeast. Would it be the Southeast? Kind of weird that, I think it is the Southeast, but it's kind of weird that Indiana's, maybe I got that wrong. But either way, because of the way the division will go, the best the Sixers can do is the 6th seed. But we'll have we should have a much clearer picture tomorrow on what the Sixers need to do, as well as tie-breaking scenarios and everything like that. But like I said, it is going to be must-see TV between the Flyers and Sixers. You have the Masters as well. But there's more. We'll get into that in a moment. But first, check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. They're doing a great job over there. No new show. I was mistaken. They will be releasing the show from Chicago later, I guess, from coming home and having to do the editing and everything. But they're doing a great job over there. Check them out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. All right, big win for the Phillies yesterday, 5-1. They're finally up over 500. And I believe, I didn't check the standings, but if I remember correctly, they're only a game and a half back of Atlanta now, because Atlanta got hammered by the Mets yesterday. But Bomer, Brandon Marsh, and Bryson Stott all hit homers. Ranger, though, my boy Ranger, 6 innings pitched, no earned runs, 8 strikeouts, and it's just doing Ranger things. And it's great to see him do well, being able to start off the season healthy, know his place in the rotation. And if you go back to the Phillies preview, I figured if I hit one of the 3 of these, I would have been all right. One of my bold predictions was Ranger would be the Phillies' best pitcher this year, and you can certainly make that argument right now, although Wheeler has been dealing as well. But it's just a matter of time before Philly Goat gets the Go-Go Ranger Suarez, the red Power Ranger shirt. And this is purely just me making this up, but it would be a great idea for a shirt, and I certainly would buy one. But until the Ranger Suarez shirt comes out, go to phillygoat.com. They have you covered, all your Phils need. And again, whether or not they make it into the playoffs or not, get in on the Flyers now. I told you this at the beginning of the season. I'm telling you again now, even if they fall short, the future is bright. Get your Flyers gear. Get geared up for Sixers playoff action, the Union, all of that other good stuff. Go to phillygoat.com. And I didn't even mention the shoes. The shoes are phenomenal. Hopefully it stops raining so I can start wearing these things. And not that I've gone many places yet that I could have worn them, but I'm super excited. Good quality. They have you covered. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery. Take 10% off and just get yourself covered. And I'm looking forward to the Go-Go Ranger Suarez. And if you watch the Power Rangers, you know Go-Go Ranger Suarez. Anyway, go to Philly Goat, check them out, and be sure to use that promo code Jim Montgomery. All right, Eagles news. They signed tight end C.J. Uzomah. I don't think that's a bad move. They needed some depth, and I think even going into last year, that was one of the big question marks I think they needed. I don't know if they need to draft someone because of the other needs this year, but that'll help fill the need between. Now you got Dallas, C.J. Uzomah, and then Albert O is on the team as well. So they have it kind of covered with tight end, I would think, which will allow them to focus on offensive line and defense, linebacker, cornerback, safety, all of that good stuff. And I keep seeing the reports. It's coming. But Howie, get it done this weekend, man. Be a great time. You have Sixers and Flyers battling for playoff positions. You have the Masters, the Phillies. Why not? Like the Eagles really do like to do this a lot, where they'll create headlines when nobody's talking about them or everybody's focusing on other things. Be a great weekend to announce this signing, Howie. I'm just saying, put me on the PR staff. Let's do it. But yeah, sign Smitty. All right. Today we're going to do a 2 for Friday. And first, we're going to go all the way back to 1909. I feel like we're kind of living in the early 1900s right now this week. But this day in 1909, the A's opened the season with an 8-1 win over the Boston Red Sox. Hall of Famer Eddie Plank pitched a complete game, 6 hit, 1 run, 5K. masterpiece to open the season. But the big story was 30+ thousand fans jammed into the inaugural game at Shibe Park. 30,000 fans, and it was only a stadium that fit 23,000. So they packed them in here for this first game. Apparently, from the news articles I was reading, the fans lined up early to get in to see the stadium. This was baseball's first steel and concrete stadium, which was a big deal. Back then, it was a masterpiece, and everybody liked Shibe Park. Apparently, I didn't hear anyone. Obviously near the end when it was the last few seasons for the Phillies, but didn't really hear nobody really had a bad word to say about Shibe Park. My dad has talked about Shibe Park going down there, but Shibe Park has had 5 World Series championships, all by the A's. 8 total World Series. The Phillies did get that one in 1950. It hosted 2 All-Star games. It was also hosted the first American League night game. Located at 21st and Lehigh, there is a historical marker there now. Later was renamed Connie Mack Stadium. At one point, when the Baker Bowl sort of fell apart, the Phillies moved in and they shared the stadium starting in 1938. Closed down after the 1970 season, long after the A's had moved out of Philadelphia. But the Phillies played there. They ended Shibe Park, Connie Mack Stadium, with a win over the Expos, and we talked about it earlier this week. They opened the Vet with a win over those Expos as well. Closed down and then was torn down in 1976. Cost a total of $301,000 back then to build, which would only be about $10 million today. And there weren't luxury boxes and LED scoreboards and things like that. But on this day in 1909, the A's opened Shibe Park with an 8-1 win over the Red Sox. Not to be outdone, all those years later, we've been talking about the Citizens Bank Park 20th anniversary. Today, back in 2004, was the official first regular season game at Citizens Bank Park. Phillies lost to the Reds 4-1. Bobby Abreu knocked in the only run with a home run, first ever at Citizens Bank Park. And we've been going through and living through the memories of Citizens Bank Park. So, ironically, on this day in 1909 and 2004, the first regular season game was played at Shibe Park, as well as Citizens Bank Park. Well, now, while it did not work out well for the Phillies on opening day at Citizens Bank Park, things would get better, and they got better very, very soon. Today's top 20 memory for the 20th anniversary of Citizens Bank Park is Game 4 of the 2008 World Series. Phillies came into that game up 2-1. Robin Roberts threw out the first pitch. Patti LaBelle sang the national anthem. And the Phillies led 2-1 heading into the bottom of the 4th. And that's when all hell broke loose. Ryan Howard hit a 3-run homer in the bottom of the 4th. Eric Hinsky came up in the top of the 5th and hit another homer to make it 5-2 Phillies. And then Heavy B, Joe Blanton himself, made it 6-2 with a shot to left field in the 5th inning. And then it was fun time after that. Jason Worth hit a 2-run homer in the 8th. Ryan Howard hit another 2-run homer in the 8th. Ended up being a 10-2 final. When all the dust cleared, Ryan Howard went 3 for 4, 2 home runs, 5 RBI. Heavy B went 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 7 Ks in that massive home run. He said he just closed his eyes and swung, and it was into the left field seats. Phillies had a commanding 3-1 lead heading into Game 5, which would take like 10 years to complete, but more on that at another date. I distinctly remember this game because there was an Eagles-Falcons game earlier that day, and we were all about trying to pull off the doubleheader to the point where my brother, my boy Haas, and my boy, I think it was my boy Haas, and myself, like we had money, we were ready to go. Like went up, like my mom was like, "Oh, I'll pay for you guys to go. This is incredible." Probably not the smartest move, but one of my students, when I was teaching in the city at the time, his mom, now this is where the whole story gets bizarre. His mom was a Philly cop, but his uncle, her brother, was a ticket scalper. So he put me in touch with him, and we were trying to work out a deal, and like he just, for whatever reason, wouldn't bite. I'm like, dude, here's $1,500 for 3 tickets. I don't care where they are. We just want in the stadium. And like we kept going back and forth, and ended up falling through. So then we got the idea that we would talk to our security guard, Ray, who I won't mention last names just in case. I know he doesn't work for them anymore. He's out in Arizona, last I heard. But we were like, Ray, he used to work security like in our section at the Eagles game, and then would work the first base gate at Citizens Bank Park. So we were like, dude, here's $1,500 cash. Let us in the stadium, and we're not going to sit in a seat. We're just going to walk around, standing room only. He turned it down. And years later, he said, I should have taken that, man. That was a lot of money just to have in my pocket to just let you guys in. So we ended up going to my buddy Mark's house and just hanging out in his basement. But, man, that would have been a great game to be at, and, like, had two opportunities to do it. I think there was a third that somebody was trying to get me tickets as well. And I can't remember the details of that. But, man, we were trying so hard to get into that game just to be able to pull off the Eagles Phillies doubleheader. But it was not meant to be, so we were not in the stands or even in the stadium or the parking lot for Heavy B's home run. But today's top 20 Citizens Bank Park memory was Joe Blanton hitting the home run, Phillies winning Game 4 of the 2008 World Series 10-2. And then the week-long saga that was Game 5. All right, finally today, we're going to go back to hockey and our Philly sports team that has unfinished business, that left some meat on the bone, and maybe one of the most disappointing finishes to a season. The 75-76 Flyers, the two-time defending champions, set a team record with 118 points in the regular season. They went 51-13-6. You ready for this home record they had? 36-2-2. They lost 2 games all year at the Spectrum and tied another 2. They were unstoppable. Went through the playoffs, beat the Maple Leafs 4-3, beat the Bruins 4-1 before getting promptly swept by the Montreal Canadiens in the Stanley Cup Finals. It was a close Stanley Cup Finals. They were all 1-goal games except for Game 4, which is a 5-3 game. But the Flyers certainly were in this, and Reggie Leach was on fire. He had 4 goals in the Stanley Cup, 19 total throughout the entire playoffs. He won the Conn Smythe for the MVP of the Stanley Cup playoffs. He was only the 3rd person to do it in a losing effort. There are now 5 of them. He still remains the only non-goalie to win the Conn Smythe, and he was the first of 2 Flyers to win the Conn Smythe. Ron Hextall won it in '87. And I've mentioned this a lot of times, but it's worth mentioning again. The Flyers have now lost, I believe it's 6 straight Stanley Cup Finals appearances, I think. No, I think it's 7, actually. So they lost to the Canadiens, which the Canadiens would go on to win 4 straight Stanley Cups. Then they lost to the Islanders, which the Islanders went on to win 4 straight Stanley Cups and be in a 5th one. Then they played the Edmonton Oilers twice, which really, the Edmonton Oilers had Mark Messier, Wayne Gretzky. They were just a stacked team. So they lost to them twice, one of them going 7 games because Ron Hextall was standing on his head. Then they lost to the Red Wings, who would go on to win 2 or 3 Stanley Cups after beating the Flyers. And then they lost most recently to the Blackhawks, who went on to win 2 or 3 Stanley Cups after beating the Flyers. So it's one of those things where if you're a fan of a team that's playing the Flyers in the Stanley Cup Finals and you beat them, congratulations, because you're going to win a few more. And even when they played the Oilers or the Bruins and won 2, the Bruins won a couple after that at some point. So 6 straight Stanley Cup final losses. The 75-76, they were unable to do the three-peat, and they were just so dominant. So the fact that, to me, that team left a ton of meat on the bone. But the 75-76 Flyers are today's Philly sports team with unfinished business. Hopefully, this team does not fall into the unfinished business category and can at least get into the playoffs. I don't think any of us have any dreams of them winning the Stanley Cup, but hockey, of all the sports, all you got to do is get in. So let's hope the Flyers can get in. It's going to be a fun weekend. Today's top 20 memory at Citizens Bank Park in honor of the 20th anniversary of Citizens Bank Park is Game 4 of the 2008 World Series. Heavy B with the home run, 6 innings pitched, just dominant. Ryan Howard hit 2 home runs. Just a fun night at the ballpark that I was unfortunately not able to be a part of. All in honor of the 20th anniversary of Citizens Bank Park, which today, back in 2004, had its first regular season game, a 4-1 loss to the Cincinnati Reds. Bobby Abreu knocking in the Phillies' only run with a home run, the first ever home run at Citizens Bank Park, which happened to occur on the same day that the A's opened Shibe Park, a.k.a. Connie Mack Stadium, back in 1909 with an 8-1 win over the Boston Red Sox. Lots of good memories for the Philly teams at Shibe Park, Connie Mack Stadium. Well, mostly the A's. I shouldn't say the Phillies teams. The Phillies, unfortunately for them, they had the 1950 World Series and then the 1964 fold were like the two big memories of Connie Mack Stadium. I guess Jim Bunning's perfect game on Father's Day counts too. Oh, well. Anyway, that happened in 1909, and then in 2004, Citizens Bank Park opened. It's going to be a fun weekend. But that leads us to today's question of the day. In honor of Heavy B's home run in Game 4 of the World Series, what is the Phillies' best World Series play of all time? Is it Chase Utley's fake throw to home plate in that same World Series? Is it Joe Blanton's home run? Is it Chooch's infield single? And they're all from this same one. Or my all-time favorite, even though I was not old enough to remember this, and if you need to, look back on this one. This was a great play. Bob Boone went to catch a foul fly in Game 6 of the World Series, and it hit off his glove, but Pete Rose happened to be there and catch it. So is it that one, or is it one of the other ones I missed? Let me know what you think. What is the Phillies' all-time best World Series play? Utley's fake throw, Blanton's home run, Chooch's infield single, or Bob Boone and Pete Rose catching the foul ball in Game 6 of the 1980 World Series? 267-495-8531. Get you in. Let me know what you're thinking. Enjoy this sports weekend, man. It's between everything that's going on. It's going to be great. Go Flyers, go Sixers, go Phils. Watch the Masters. It's going to be great. And Howie, it's your time to shine. Make Smitty happen now. And don't forget, if you want to have any information or you have questions about possibly becoming a sponsor for the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony this year, hit me up offline. But go have yourselves a Friday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.